Good evening, folks. I'm Noelle Janka. I'm a yoga teacher and a life coach for people with health challenges. And you are joining us on Healcast, which is a question and answer series with holistic and complementary practitioners from around the country that can help you on your healing journey. And tonight, we're so lucky to be joined by Dr. Katie Rewick-Cooley. Thank you so much, Katie. And we're going to talk about naturopathic medicine. So Katie, I'd love to just start by asking you, like, how would you define naturopathic medicine?
It's very broad. Naturopathic medicine is follows the traditions of the old herbalists and the early physicians who believed in the healing power of nature coming out of Europe that then came over to the United States early on. And naturopathic medicine today is very broad, and it depends on where you're located in the country. Not every state licenses naturopaths, so we're a broad bunch. We believe in the healing power of nature that works two ways. One, that our bodies have an innate wisdom to heal themselves, and that if we remove obstacles, the body will spontaneously heal. And then also the belief in the healing power of nature as in herbs and nutrition and lifestyle and getting out in the woods and like being exposed to nature can also help us to heal. We have a whole list of, philosophical tenets of, the traditional first do no harm. But then we add in things like prevention. We would rather prevent disease rather than treat it. Finding the root cause. So naturopathic medicine is different in that we believe that there's that root cause, right? And we don't look, we could give you something to get rid of the symptoms of a disease or condition, but our belief is like, why treat some, just to remove symptoms? Let's get to the real root of it. What is causing this? We treat the whole person. So it's very holistic in like understanding how the mind affects the body and how different parts of the body affect other parts of the body. There's also the belief of doctor as teacher, that we don't just, here, go do this. We don't tell people what to do. We want to teach them and empower them in their own healing journey. And I know I'm forgetting another one of the philosophical tenets. It'll come to me.
Okay, I'm sure it'll come up at some point. Yeah. Can you give an example of something you might do like for prevention wise? Because I think that's pretty different from conventional medicine.
Right. So it's easier to understand with like diabetes or heart disease. Say somebody has a strong family history of heart disease, like their father died of a heart attack and their mother had, heart disease, or if they had family history or of diabetes, or kind of were getting close, like had a higher blood sugar. We would look at that and say, okay, you have a risk of developing these conditions. What can we do today that's going to prevent that? So I would then start talking to somebody about lifestyle, diet, like exercise and what you put in your body are huge pieces for those two diseases, whether it's heart disease or diabetes. You can greatly reduce your risk just by eating better and exercising. So that's kind of an idea.
Yeah, definitely. And can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be a naturopathic doctor and, how you got here?
Yeah. For me, it started right my first year of college. I developed fatigue and a lot of other symptoms that went with it. And I saw a few Western medical doctors who were like, I got no idea. And that wasn't very satisfactory, shall we say. So my mother took me to a naturopath. My grandmother believed in herbs and nutrition and all of that. So my mom was like, let's try something else. And all along, because I've had health issues over the years, and naturopathic medicine was the one that really, really helped me the most. And so when I graduated from college and started working with chiropractors, I fell in love with this type of medicine, and I just so strongly believed in the philosophy of it, and enjoyed the idea of the puzzle of finding the root cause. And so I was like, done. So I went back to school to get my doctorate.
And so how specifically did it help you in ways that conventional medicine didn't?
Well, first, conventional medicine has no answer for fatigue. You go to a Western medical doctor, at least in my experience, and I do not speak for all patients or all Western medical physicians, but in my experience, they didn't really know what to do with my fatigue. Whereas, a naturopathic physician had a broader understanding of, like, we don't necessarily have labs that will explain X, Y, and Z, but your adrenal glands need support. So let's work there. And I noticed that in doing work with naturopaths, and doing, kind of more of the healing work on myself, like following their treatment protocols, but also like, being more in touch with nature, that's when I started to feel better. Or even if I didn't feel better, like physically, I felt emotionally better and less anxious about what was going on with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of people in our community who have things like fatigue or pain that conventional doctors just don't know what to do with. So I think that's I don't think you're the only one by any means. And I'm interested to hear more about what you said about the connection with nature and sort of what that looks like from your perspective. I mean, do you like write a script to hang out in the forest, or sort of like what does that look like?
That's a great idea. There's actually research out of Japan. They actually do have something called forest bathing, where you just go spend time in the forest. Yeah, so like for me, it's definitely telling people to go outside. Like our culture is so focused on these computers and technology, and we lose touch with nature. So one thing that naturopaths like to prescribe is called grounding, where you take off your shoes and socks and you walk on dirt and grass and have that the relationship to nature. Like you see it, you sense it, you touch, smell, getting all of the senses involved, and just being in nature has a way of healing us, because we connect to this thing that's bigger than us.
Mm-hmm. Great. And like let's say I came to you with some kind of generalized fatigue, where might you start in terms of supporting me?
Ooh. The first step is always investigation. So I would start with obviously a thorough history, finding out what exactly is going on with you, like what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. And I have, like there's a whole list of things that can cause fatigue. So I'd kind of go through that list and ask you questions on each of them, like how's your thyroid function? How's your adrenal function? How's your digestive system? And really get a thorough picture of what it looks like for you. So a big difference with naturopaths is that we tend to spend a lot more time with our patients, up to an hour or an hour and a half. Some doctors spend 2 hours with a new patient. So it's a very, very thorough history. And then depending on where you are in the country and what naturopaths can do, I would do blood work and lab tests to kind of confirm what it was that I was thinking. And so in Oregon, where I am, naturopaths are basically like any other primary care doctor. So we can prescribe medications, we can order lab tests, etc. Other places don't license naturopaths, so it's very different as to what they're able to do. While I was waiting for all of the lab tests and things to come back, I'd probably start by, investigating your diet, your lifestyle, whether or not you were exercising, getting out in the sunlight, all of the just kind of basic support, and then delve into what the details are as we get more information.
Great. And what kind of things, like what sort of illnesses or conditions do you typically treat?
Anything and everything, really. So naturopathic medicine really excels at treating chronic conditions, though there's great success with acute remedies, acute illnesses. Conditions. Is that?
Sorry, something got messed up on my computer.
No worries. So there are ways that we can treat acute things, like an acute ear infection, sore throat, all of that. But we really excel at the more chronic conditions that, Western medicine is great at dealing with, like, the acute serious stuff. Hands down, they do really well at that. What they, I think, have a harder time with is people have these chronic low, things that bother them that don't seem to get better with medications or get worse. And there's no medication to treat fatigue. So naturopaths, I'd say that's kind of where we excel at.
But it sounds like if I was seeing you for some kind of chronic thing and then I also had an ear infection or a UTI or something, I could keep seeing you for that too?
Absolutely. Yeah. And often naturopaths can treat things like ear infections and UTIs without antibiotics, which is great because then we, reduce the resistance of those antibiotics.
Yeah. Oh man, that's huge. And why might someone, a lot of the people that are listening to this are people that have tried a bunch of stuff, or maybe they're curious to try something different. Why might someone choose to work with a naturopath versus other different kinds of practitioners?
I think all practitioners have, their place and the things that they excel at. I think a naturopath would be, if it would be that moment of like, okay, I've tried so many things. I really want to delve into this and understand the root of what is going on. I want a practitioner who is trained, like medically trained, who can really understand the person as a whole and dig into it. So naturopaths, our training is on par with Western medical doctors. They get more clinical training, but we get more training in the classroom. But we, at an accredited school, we get pharmacology, we get anatomy, physiology, pathophysiology, microbiology, biochemistry, but then we also get herbs, nutrition, homeopathy. We are very well trained in a lot of different areas. And I think that people think that we are not as educated in medicine as Western medical doctors, which isn't true. So I think that if people want to work with a practitioner who is medically trained, but also has an understanding of the body as a whole and wants to delve into, like, really dig deep into, like, what's causing this? Where's the root? How can we find that linchpin that's going to have huge effects on all different levels, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, even spiritual? Naturopaths really kind of delve into all of it. I know I especially do. That's where I'm most interested, is how it all comes together.
Yeah, I know we talked about that a little bit before. Well, I have more questions for you, Katie, but I just want to pause and say, for the folks that are watching, If you have questions for Katie, like please, start typing them in, and as soon as they come in, I will start passing them along. But Katie, back to you. Are there, I think that we're both, given our experience as chronic illness survivors ourselves, always thinking about healing, and like very astute students of healing, you even more than me, having been to medical school and everything. But are there sort of general tips or advice that you would give people that are living with a chronic illness that are just like, how do I heal? Like what's the secret? What would you say?
Well, so with the work that I do, it's very individualized. Like I come up with a plan specific for a person. So, but in general, I would say, diet and exercise. But when it comes to diet, I look at whole foods. So vegetables, fruit, protein, and things that like plant-based foods rather than, things that have been processed. I also think that meditation is a tremendous healing modality. Just being able to sit there and be present with what is. So with a chronic health issue, it's there. It's what is. And if I fight it, I'm going to feel so much worse. So by being able to sit with what is and just be present with it and allow it to be there, like I've spent many years like battling against it, like, oh, that shouldn't be this way, but it is, and like trying to fight it and make it go away. And as soon as I relaxed and just kind of accepted it and sat with it and just let it be, I felt so much better. It got rid of the anxiety and the suffering of it. And instead it just became part of my life rather than, this main defining thing about me. So I would say, meditation and, acceptance of the experience are huge pieces of it that I would recommend to pretty much anyone. The other thing that I would recommend is something that I learned from a professor at Stanford, Kelly McGonigal, about doing a values exercise of writing down writing down our values helps us to be better resilient to stress and also to have more willpower. So if we needed help changing our diet, or it just has these broad, overall benefits to the mind and body. And that, and another exercise is a gratitude exercise, like writing in your notebook 3 things you're grateful for every day. Just having those attitudes of being present with what, your values are and what you're grateful for can really help.
And great to hear you say that, Katie, because those are things that I am always talking about too. We're actually running a gratitude challenge in the Spoonie Superstars Facebook group right now. And I think the meditation and acceptance piece is, like you said, so huge and can really benefit everyone. And values, I mean, that's a huge part of what I do with folks. So I couldn't agree with you more there. So cool. Okay, so we have a question from April, and April asks, what other specialists do naturopaths refer to? Do you think autoimmune disease causes leaky gut, or leaky gut causes autoimmune disease? And are you interested in epigenetics in your practice? So that's 3 questions, I guess.
Yes, great. Help me if I forget all 3. But naturopaths, again, it depends on where you are. So naturopaths, we're only licensed in, I think, about 16 or 17 states. So I don't know how all the different laws and regulations work in all states. But from what I do here, we refer to every single other specialist you could think of. I've referred people to Western medical doctors, to, oncologists, ear, nose, and throat doctors, rheumatologists, physical therapy. I've recommended people see an acupuncturist or do yoga, or, you know, like pretty much we'd refer to whatever the patient was needing. And then, yes, so autoimmune disease and leaky gut, they do kind of go together from what I know. And I'm by no means an expert in all of this, but from what I've learned from immunology is that our gut is such a big part of our immune system. And so having a strong barrier in the gut and having good bacteria in the gut are really important for our immune system. So what happens with leaky gut is that, you know, you open the space between the cells, and then you get things coming into the bloodstream that shouldn't be there. So we typically break down all of our food into like the tiniest little pieces that we can, and then those get absorbed. So what you find with leaky gut is these big molecules in the system that aren't supposed to be there, which then stimulates the immune system to attack those things, right? And what happens is that if there's a food that your body is attacking that's similar to one of your own cells, it can trigger the body to start attacking the cells. Now, that I think that there are lots of other pieces to autoimmune disease, including whether you're genetically predisposed to it, or whether you've had other types of insults in, you know, like trauma or injury to your body, or it can even be started when you have like a major bout of food poisoning. So there's something that kind of triggers autoimmune disease, but doctors think that leaky gut might be part of it. And there's the question, chicken or the egg, which I think is what your question is also kind of getting at, is that autoimmune disease can cause it, and it can cause autoimmune disease, I believe. I find epigenetics fascinating. I don't yet know how exactly to include it in practice, because epigenetics is based on the idea that, you know, our genetics is impacted. So how our genes get expressed is impacted by what our grandparents were doing. So, you know, like what my grandmother's diet was when she was pregnant with my mom impacts my genes. And I find it really fascinating, but I don't know yet how to really bring it into clinical practice, because, you know, my grandmother ate what my grandmother ate. I can't change that. So I'm totally open to ideas about how to impact it.
And do you know of other people that are working with it, with epigenetics?
I don't. I know some people that are working on genetics, you know, like the 23andMe type thing, and how that impacts health. And there are lots of other genetic markers that we might look at, like the methylation pathways and that kind of thing. But I don't know about epigenetics specifically.
All right. Well, thank you. And if other folks have questions, please post away. But I guess my next question, Katie, is how might somebody work with you, or how might somebody find a naturopath in their area?
Sure. So because I don't know about how naturopaths, you know, work in all different areas of the country, it's a little hard for me to say. So I know that in at least 16 states, naturopaths are licensed medical practitioners. And so almost every state, I believe, has a national or a statewide association. So here in Oregon, we have the Oregon Association of Naturopathic Physicians. And so you can go to one of those websites. You can search out the one for your state. There is also the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians. And I looked today, and they do have a search feature that you can put in your, you know, your zip code and find out if there are any naturopaths near you. Again, in different states, it works differently. So if naturopaths are not licensed in a given state, like I think the South more southern, eastern southern states don't license naturopaths as much. Then naturopaths living in that area, whether they're, they've been to medical school, they've been licensed in other states, if they're working there, they're working more as a consultant. So I do work with people remotely. However, it changes because of, the legality, the working across state lines in states that might not license naturopaths. So I would be more of a consultant and an advocate. So somebody would tell me their health history, and we would discuss it. I would, basically do all of the intake that I normally would, without, of course, the physical exam. But then kind of help them navigate the medical field. Like, where can they get the help that they need? Which physicians should they be looking for? Which questions should they be asking their doctor? What lab tests might they ask their doctor? Doctors might not say, give you a lot of options. So how can I help them navigate the healthcare field?
That sounds huge.
Hmm.
And sorry, go ahead.
I said absolutely that, I think that people, in our medical field, the culture around medicine currently is that we give our power to the doctors. They decide, they tell us what to do. And I have a totally different view of that. I don't want anyone to give me their power. I want to empower patients to take care of their own health and to stand up and be an advocate for themselves and to have the information that they need to make the choices that they need to make, instead of being like, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and if you don't, I'm going to shame you into doing it. No, that's not healing in my book.
Oh, that gets a round of applause. It just feels so good to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Amazing. And how can people find your contact information to get in touch with you?
Right, sure. So on the Healcast page, I believe, is my website that is still very much a work in progress. But it's drkatiecooley.com, and it's COOLEY.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
That has a contact thing, so you can send me emails. And I do initial consults with people for free to say, hey, who are you? Who am I? How could we work together? And make sure that it's a right fit before somebody has to commit money to it.
That's so great. So generous of you. Okay, we have another question from the audience. Here we go. Are there general ways to rebuild the gut? I have autoimmune, no leaky gut, but multiple food sensitivities that set off my MS symptoms when those allergic reactions begin. I've had a whole foods diet for years, but my gut is built on a childhood of sugar and carbs. Any way to reset the gut?
Yes. So because I don't know individuals' health history, I can't really give you specific, legally, I can't diagnose and treat disease without the patient-physician relationship. So I'll put that out there. But in general, yes, whole foods diet is wonderful. I'm wondering if you've ever been tested for food allergies. Like, if you're eating a food that you're sensitive to, you're likely going to spark inflammation in the intestines, which then increases the leakiness of the gut. So I would look into food allergies. So there are foods that increase inflammation, like tomatoes and eggplant and potatoes. They're part of a specific plant family, and it's part of the anti-inflammatory diet, if anyone's heard of that. They trigger a lot of inflammation in the gut. So, I mean, that's another idea of try avoiding, tomatoes and see, tomatoes and potatoes and eggplant and peppers to see if that helps. there's so much that you can do, but it's really specific for individuals. So I'm having a little bit.
Yeah, and I just because it sounds like they know they have food sensitivities. So in terms of resetting the gut, anything else that's good for that?
Yeah, so I would say definitely probiotics. So eating, or whether it's fermented foods are great because it's actual bacteria that's in your environment, and that's what you would normally have in your gut. So fermented foods, whether that's like making sauerkraut yourself or kimchi or even making yogurt, if you're not sensitive to dairy, of course, or if it's in capsule form. And generally, probiotics come anywhere from 5 billion units all the way up to, like 60 billion units. So, I would start someone, in the middle if they were really wanting to rebuild the gut. There are a lot of herbs and supplements that can also help, but I can't really say that without knowing somebody's health history.
Because it really depends person to person.
Yeah, and also there are things that, might be a risk for somebody, like I can give you an example. Aloe, so actually having the plant aloe can really help soothe the gut. But if you get the wrong part of the aloe, the rind of it is more going to cause, diarrhea. So you have to understand where somebody is at, with their health history, and, help them to find the right product too. If that makes sense.
Actually, I had an experience with aloe myself recently where I've discovered that a product that I was taking had the wrong kind of aloe in it that could have provoked a Lyme flare. And how was I supposed to know? That's when it's good to have a practitioner look at the stuff you're taking.
Yeah. Yeah, and you never know how somebody is going to react to something. Mm-hmm. But I think probiotics are pretty universally okay. But of course, if you have any questions, check with your doctors.
Yeah. So another person who's watching asked sort of a follow-up question. Are probiotics worth the expense, or is it just as good to eat a lot of fermented foods? If you do recommend probiotics, which brands are trustworthy?
My thing is go to food first. If you can get something through your food and your diet, I love it. So fermented foods would be the way to go. They are harder to do. And brands, I don't know what is available across the country. I don't know what. I know what my store here sells, but is that what is available elsewhere? So I would look, how can I advise? Let me think about that one, because I don't have an answer right off the top of my head. It might be helpful to know where this person is located. Massachusetts. Oh. Do you have health? I imagine you have health food stores in Massachusetts, right?
Yes.
I would probably, I would go to the health food store and ask them. Generally people that work in a health food store are pretty knowledgeable about the products. And so I would ask them for their recommendations.
Mm-hmm. Follow-up question. Do probiotics always need to be refrigerated?
It depends on how they're made, but generally, yes. It definitely preserves the length of, the shelf life of them. Because after they're made, over time, they do decrease in potency. So if you refrigerate them, you slow that process.
Great. Other questions from folks out there while we're at it? maybe while we're waiting, do you want to talk a little bit, Katie, about how your practice is evolving and sort of the other things that you're looking at right now?
I'd love to. So I do work with people with, traditional naturopathic medicine of, diagnosing and treating disease with, natural remedies. My other interest in medicine is regarding change as a healing modality. I believe that you can't cure or heal a disease from the same conditions that it arose out of. So, there's some element of change that I've noticed in most people's healing journeys, whether it's a lifestyle change, a diet change, or down to relationships. Are there toxic relationships in somebody's life that is stressing them out, causing, ulcers or, other stress-related diseases? Or the other thing, our thought patterns. Our thought patterns and beliefs really have an effect on our physical health. And I really am interested in working with people on that healing journey and understanding that it's a journey more than like, a one-time visit, but, and that it's a journey that involves change, and change is so hard for a lot of people. Like it's hard, and yet it's the only constant in life. And so I work with people or, around this idea of how can I help them embrace that change? Whatever their condition is asking of them. There's so much that we can learn from our health challenges. Like for me, I had chronic fatigue, and I used to be this like highly driven person. I was valedictorian. I wanted to conquer the world type thing. And then I got sick. And I couldn't have that drive and motivation anymore. And so in struggling with like this part of myself, but not being able to do it, I learned that drive didn't come from, it came from a need to prove myself, that my worth was from achieving these great things. And once I let go of that and learned to love myself where I am, that's when I really started to notice some big shifts in my energy levels. So I love the idea of healing as more of a journey and embracing these lessons and changes that our illness offers us.
I love that. And I think change can feel especially hard when we're dealing with a health challenge or chronic illness, because there's always that fear of like, well, what if I can't change because I'm sick, or what if I make this big change and then I get sick and something gets messed up, or, I think there's just a lot more sort of like fear and uncertainty.
Absolutely. And when you're chronically ill, like you need that added support to make those changes. I think it can be really hard to do it on your own. And so my work is more around being on that healing journey with people and being that person that they can check in with. Like I give people, I think that people know the answers. And so if I ask them the right questions and kind of get in there and talk to them about it, they typically know the answers for themselves. And so I help bring that out and then help them along the journey. When they need that added support, I'm there.
I love that so much.
I kind of liken it to, healing from a chronic illness is like climbing a mountain. And there are days when you have like this, it's flat and you can see this beautiful view. And then there are days when you fall in a crevasse or you trip in the mud and just everything seems horrible. And so the idea of it as this journey that like you have moments of it just sucks. And then you have moments of triumph and joy, like this beautiful view of the neighboring mountains and like the triumph of having gotten to like, some big thing that you didn't think you could get to. And I love being on that journey with people and helping them climb that mountain and find that triumph and joy, even in, the chronic, messy ugliness that is chronic illness.
And is it your feeling, Katie, that everyone can heal fully?
I guess it depends on what you mean by heal fully. The removal of symptoms, I'd say it depends. It depends on what's causing it, right? Like if you have a genetic condition that's causing symptoms and suffering, I don't know if you can heal that. I've been through periods of my life where I totally believed in the power of the mind, that like if I believe it and I believe that I can heal it, then it will happen. And I think that there is definitely truth in that. And I've seen and heard of people who have healed their cancer just by changing their thoughts, and believing that they could change it. So I guess I have one side of me that definitely believes it's possible, and another side of me that says, well, yeah, let's be a little more realistic, that it doesn't necessarily happen to everybody. And as a physician, I can definitely not claim that I cured, every disease under the sun. But there's possibility, I think.
That's always nice to hang on to.
Yeah. And I've definitely believed it for myself, and I won't stop until I have, the answers. But the other thing is that even if you don't get a resolution of the symptoms, maybe healing is not the resolution of symptoms, but being at peace with where we are. Because I'd love to work with people who have cancer, even if it's like a terminal case, you can still give so much, and there's so much, emotional healing that's available. And maybe that's all that they need.
I love that you're really, talk about holistic healing. It sounds like you really look at people just like 360 degrees all the way around.
I do.
Great. Well, I just want to put out one more call if there's anyone else that has any questions for Katie while we're here. And then in the meantime, Katie, is there anything else that you would love to share?
I absolutely love this medicine. I love the philosophy of naturopathic medicine, and I truly believe it, that nature does have the power to heal, and that our bodies are designed to heal and to find that, like, it's called homeostasis, but it's basically the balance of well-being. And we, things come and they knock that balance off, and then our body tries to, like, okay, well, I can't reach that again, so I'm going to make this work. But if you remove the obstacles and you help people, if they're missing, if they're low in vitamin D and you give them that removes an obstacle. And as you slowly remove the obstacles, the body can and does come back to balance. Even things that Western medical doctors say, well, there's nothing we can do. I've seen great things happen for people by using naturopathic medicine, and things that they didn't think that they could heal miraculously seem to get better just by removing those obstacles.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Like, it totally lights my brain up.
It's so clear. And I so appreciate you taking the time tonight to share everything that you do with us and to share your love for this, Katie. It's so clear how passionate you are about it, and appreciate you being so generous with your time.
My pleasure. I love it.
And again, for anyone who wants to connect with Katie or learn more about her work, you can go to the Healcast website, which is just noeljanka.com/Healcast, and I'll post it in the comments below the Facebook Live video so that you can follow up later. But thanks a lot. I hope everyone has a good night and be as well as you can. Thank you, Katie.
Very much. I appreciate you including me.
You're so welcome. Okay, good night.
Take care.